I am. I have 2 classes this summer. Um, Clinical assessment with substance-related and addiction issues, and also psychopathology in the DSM-5.
Beautiful.
Yes, those are the 2 classes that I'm teaching. I heard people complaining that I'm giving too much work for summer school.
Well, let me just say that I have elected Dr. West to audit Dr. Raheem's DSM class. And he sent an email after the first class. He was like, oh, here's a quick quiz for you guys for next week, right? It's like 20 questions. I mean, that's not a quick quiz. It's like a final exam.
That's a whole test.
You know what I'm saying?
So you're not going to take Dr. Falconier's class then, right?
Correct. Because I would have to, yeah, correct.
Because you would have to what?
I would have to have an actual class in the fall, spring.
Have you figured out if you can get credit? I mean, instead of auditing, get credit for it?
No, I didn't check it out.
You should advocate for yourself and do that. It's the same class.
Yeah, that's true. I'll look into it. I'll look into it. I'm probably gonna look into it.
We can make it, but we don't even know if Dr. Copier is an actual class. We don't even know if we're going to be in. We're still waiting.
It'll still happen. It'll just if we're online, it'll just be online, right?
Yeah, yes, but you should be able to, who is your advisor? We should try to get you credit for it.
Dr. What's her name? My BFF.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank just like that. I see your face. I'm drawing a blank.
All good. Is Jerry joining us?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that some of my Winter Force students show up.
Kim, what's her name?
Who is that? Ouch, 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 ouch.
What's her name? Kim. She teaches
Bowling prom.
bowling prom. Jesus. Yeah.
All righty. Welcome to summertime.
Right.
This is what happens when you ask the gardener to get online. Got a cute shirt though. It's very social work like.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. It's Foxy Cleopatra. Is that one of your students, Dr. Raheem?
Actually, that's one of my former students. I was an adjunct at Chicago State.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So she said her name is it Tonisha Johnson? She said it's Tonisha Johnson, but it would show up as Foxy, yeah.
All right, man.
Hey, Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
Oh, how y'all doing?
All right.
Hi.
All right.
Hi, Jerry.
Hey. How you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Likewise. I'm getting myself situated. I'm ready.
These are always like mini family reunions.
Exactly.
Family reunion.
It's I'm telling you, okay, watch this. I work in my basement. The basement is nice. However, I feel like I'm in jail.
Uh-oh.
No windows.
I got these little itty bitty windows up here, you know. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I didn't even know it was hot outside. I mean, it's nice and cool down here.
Addison, Jerry looked at you like, don't play, man.
I know, right? You saw that, Dr. West?
Yeah, I did. Jerry was like, hey, don't play. So we can actually get, I guess is Khalil also from Chicago State?
No, Khalil is actually a brother I know that I met when I went to a conference in Detroit. So he's also here supporting me. So I sent it out to my Wilberforce students, but unfortunately they're late.
Oh, it's,
So they should be.
I had a was it John Ball?
uh-huh.
Bill, what's his name?
William
Bill
Ford, Bill Ford.
Bill Ford. Is that he's from Wilberforce, right? He said he was from Ohio.
Yes, he's from Wilberforce, and we're a very small program, so I was hoping that some of them would show up and, you know, support their. Oh, a kid's here. Yeah, she's one of my former students from Fresno State.
Khalil said, peace and blessings to all.
Thank you, Khalil. To you as well.
The reason why we are, we can get started, and I'm gonna, of course, let you introduce. I just want to just give us a brief overview of GSU culture and social work is pretty much probably similar to Chicago State and Wilberforce. We are a family. And that's why we like looking at each other and faces, because we never know how this is gonna go, but we're all family here. And because anybody you bring, we consider you Dr. Rahim family.
Oh, thank you.
Which means a
Hopefully
kid
y'all
is
feel
family. Say it
Hopefully
again.
y'all feel like family after this discussion.
Oh, it's all good. We can go there. We're ready. We're ready. But Akita, Khalil, and Tanisha, we truly welcome you as family. So we're gonna get started. Shalisa, you want to introduce our panel?
All right, and so we have Addison Jackson. He is a former Governor State University graduate from the MSW program. He went on, obtained his LCSW. I know he has some military background. And I wasn't sure, let me say some military background. I can't remember if it's Marine or Army.
Oh my goodness, really? That you would go right there.
Army?
I'm retired from the Army.
Okay. All right, so Army background. He has his own private practice now in Richmond Park, and he works for an agency doing case management.
Centene. I work for Centene.
Centene. That's like a managed care.
It's if anybody knows Illini Care, they just bought Illini Care.
Okay.
And they're dealing with the DCFS population.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, and Addison has agreed to be on our panel today. We have Jerry Davis. Hey, Jerry. Jerry is also a graduate from Governor State University in the MSW program. Jerry has, is in the works, getting his halfway house together, right? Up and running. Good job on that. Jerry has a lot of things. He's working for a BAM. It's called BAM, Becoming a Man. They work for in the school system. So they're mentoring young Black males into adulthood, through high school into adulthood. They also have a WOW program, working on womanhood, right? Right, working on womanhood. Jerry has some other, Jerry has a little extensive background also. So you can add a little bit more in a few. Dr. Rahim. Hey, Dr. Rahim. Dr. Rahim, he's a counselor educator. He did his undergrad, let me see if I can remember. He did his undergrad at Chicago State. He did his master's at Northern Chicago State. Right, Chicago State. He did his doctorate at Northern. There you go. Okay. And he's right now working at Wilberforce University as a counselor educator. Dr. Rahim and I have been friends since I first started working I was working at River Edge Hospital. So we were both, what were we?
Mental health tech.
Mental health techs on the unit. And Dr. Rahim also has military background. He is retired from the Marines, right?
I'm too old to be in it anymore. That's more retired.
That's retired. So if either of our panelists want to add a little bit more to their background, I don't want to do you a disservice. You guys have really been working hard, so I want to give you all your accolades.
Well, currently I'm not a BAM counselor anymore. I still work with AEC Youth Guidance. So I'm a BAM training academy. So I'm a curriculum specialist. So I work and train BAM counselors in the South Dakota 5 schools. That's good.
All right. Addison.
Oh, I'm ready to get this conversation going. Y'all know enough about me. Y'all gonna find out though.
All right. And so, Dr. Rahim, did you want to add anything?
Let's see. Yes, I worked. Just finished my first year at Wilberforce. Prior to that, I was at Fresno State for 7 years, where I was the unofficial advisor for Alpha Kappa Alpha. I became the official advisor for Alpha Phi Alpha, and I was the advisor for the Black Student Union. I was former president of the Black Faculty and Staff Association. Yeah, I did a lot of things at Fresno State. Let me see. Until I did my Colin Kaepernick act, but that's a whole different story. Yes, so that's about it. I am looking forward to this discussion. Thank you for inviting me. I was scared when I'm a little bit too controversial, but now seeing the other two gentlemen on the panel, I might be a lightweight.
All right, and hey, Teresa. Teresa's she's one of my colleagues at Governor State. So we in this together, Teresa.
We're all good. Hello, everyone.
And I'll put this disclaimer out. If I refer to Dr. Rahim as Malik, it's not because
respectful.
It's just because I've known him for like 20 years maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was always Malik. So, but I'm going to try to do the Dr. Rahim.
All you got to
mute this while my train goes by.
Just put your name by my picture and it says Dr. Malik Rahim. And just read that right there.
All right, so do we want to, Dr. Malik, Dr. Rahim, before we start, would you please introduce us to your guests and just acknowledge them, because I want to make sure that we're all in the room as family.
Okay. Well, I see Akia Irving. She's one of the beautiful young ladies that I met at Fresno State. She was, I want to say, the public relations person for the Black Student Union, and she's also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. She's one of my many academic children. I consider her my academic daughter, one of them. I have a lot of them. But she is a graduate of Fresno State, and if I'm not mistaken, she completed her master's, I want to say in San Diego. I think she's currently living in San Diego. That's Akia Irving. And then we have Foxy Cleopatra, also known as Tanisha Johnson, I'm sorry. She is a former student of mine from Chicago State University. She took, I started thinking she was a psych major because she was taking all the classes that I taught. So she was following me around, but she's a beautiful soul. And then Khalil Muminium, he is a beautiful person. I met him in Detroit when I did a conference about mental health issues with Muslims, and then we became Facebook friends. And he has a lot of great programs in Detroit called Chill Don't Kill, where he's trying to stop the inner city violence in Detroit. And so he's a very, very popular social activist out in Detroit. And then we have Mr. William Ford, who is one of my Wilberforce University. I feel like I've been, he's one of my Wilberforce students. He's currently in my clinical assessment and substance related disorders class. He's taken a couple of classes with me as well. So he's also from Wilberforce. I'm trying to look, I don't think I see anyone else.
There's a 513 number.
Yes, that's Mr. Ford. He connects via phone, but uses computer to watch the video.
Cool. All right, everybody, and GSU social work, do you want to, former alums and current folks, do you want to just say your name? Well, Victoria, all of them are alums, look like it, with the exception of Teresa and
Stephanie, I'll soon join the club in one more year.
Okay, so we wanted to take this time to gather. Shalisa, do you have anything else to?
I did.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. 2 things. Teresa, we have less than a year before we graduate.
Exactly. Correct me. 2 semesters. Let's go that route.
That's 2 semesters. And then I want to acknowledge Tawana. Tawana Jordan is one of my current coworkers. And so I play this is how Tawana, and I thank you, because this is how this really all started for me. With everything that was going on with George Floyd and the protests and the rioting and the looting, I put his Facebook status up, and Tawana had a very completely different opinion, and so we agreed to disagree, but it kind of brought me, it made me think a bit more, because everybody's experience is different. Not everybody agrees with every aspect of what's occurring, but everybody's opinion matters, and so I wanted to kind of put this together so we can talk and hear and give everybody a voice to speak and be heard. Because I know sometimes I'll hold things in because I don't want to be controversial. I know there are times I've been accused of not being Black enough, just based on some of my thought process about certain things. But everybody's opinion matters. So I'll go ahead and I'll let Dr. West do this from here.
Okay, first, of course, Dr. Rahim, thank you for taking care of my sorors at Fresno. Soror Akia, acknowledge that. Of course, I'm happy that we're together. We've done a number of these talks, and we just did one last week where Jerry and Addison, we were on, and it was pretty powerful. What I am suggesting we do, and of course we can flow with whatever the energy in the room dictates, but we were hoping to at least start with Dr. Rahim, Jerry, and Addison talking about their reflections of this public execution of George Floyd, right? And that we all witness. We see what's going on, but we just wanted them to just have an open forum to at least start us off about their perspective. And then from there, we can open it up to everyone. If you have a comment, probably just as long as if somebody's talking, if you want to just make a comment, say, I want to make a comment, question, whatever it is, and then put it in the chat. And then that way it'll be easier probably for Shalisa and I to manage the different conversations. Right? So let's start with our guests. Dr. Rahim.
So many different things. Thank you, Dr. West, for inviting me. Thank you, Shalisha. I feel honored. So hopefully I won't say anything too controversial, but then again, I will try. when I first saw the video, it really hurt my heart, and it hurt my heart several reasons. One, when I found out his final words were "mama," where he was calling out to his mama. The reason I think that hurt me so bad was because when I found out his mom had died, my mom had passed away too. And one of the things that if you study people of African descent when they are in hospice care, you find that it's a common theme that they'll call out to their mother, almost like the mother is right there in the room with them. And it's like that was almost his way of transitioning to the next level, the next world, to where it's like he was looking for his mama for protection to transition. And then I had a thought that when I found out his name was George Floyd, there's two interesting points about that. Prior to me converting to Islam, my name was George Forrest. And so the thing is that when I think about the uprising that is happening, and it's like the interesting thing is someone asked me, why do I think this is happening now compared to all the other events? And I said, well, if you look back in history, there was this thing called the Pullman Porters. And the Pullman Porters, no matter what your identity was, as a Pullman Porter, your name was George, right? So the thing is that it's like George Floyd kind of represents all the Black men, right, that have passed on through police violence, all the Black women who have passed on, and some of the ones that we don't even know about. So it's like that's the hurt. And then to see that he was there struggling, just trying to breathe, and the way the police officer just, laid his knees on his throat and just had his hands in his pocket, all nonchalant, like this is something that he does on a regular basis, right? And then the other officers standing around, and so the culture of policing to just stand around and just watch this happen. And then the helplessness of the people who were around there, screaming to let him off. But if you notice the one brother who was mom, he wasn't just standing there. It was like he was holding guard to make sure no one from the crowd came and interfered and tried to stop the police officer from being on his throat. So it's like he knew what was happening, and he was standing guard to protect so it could continue to happen. So it's like, it extremely saddens me. And then it's like, as I see what, I don't like to call it riots, I like to call it an uprising, because of the fact that this is something that's been building for so long. And it's like, it started with the police brutality, but it's like the systemic issues that people of African descent had to face since being in this Western hemisphere has been well over documented. 400 years of documentation of just trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. And I mean, if I quote it wrong, please forgive me, but there's an African proverb that says the child who doesn't feel the warmth of the community will burn it down just to feel warm. And it's like, that's what's basically happening. It's just that frustration, that rage is just coming out.
That's right.
So I don't know. I just make my statement brief, so I let the other panelists go, but that's just what my thoughts were when I first saw it.
Okay, just know that we don't believe in restraining people around here, so you can say.
Let me talk now. You
want to say we can handle it.
You can ask Akia, Foxy, Cleopatra, and Bill, and even Khalil. Then you can let me talk. It'll just be.
we believe in healthy debate and expression and critical thinking around here, so we're not afraid of what you can dish out. Thank you, though. Thank you for your comments, Jerry.
All right, everybody, welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm in a better space today. That's good. What my thoughts was that night, leading up to that event, because we had a few events prior to it, Ahmad, Brianna, and I was trying to not engage in that, being a social worker and dealing with students and counselors and trauma and vicarious trauma. And I'm studying for my licensed clinical social work exam. So I was just trying to just get to that space. And which was on the 24th of this month, I take my exam, but I pushed it back 2 weeks. But that night, I'll never forget, it was about 9 or 10 o'clock, because I studied in the morning, and that night I revisit, and someone called me and was telling me, look at the news. I'm like, I can't do this right now. They were like, officer guys, and I'm like, I can't do it. But soon I hung up the phone, I had to turn on the news. And from that point, for like a week, I couldn't even go back to study. I couldn't even focus, because I got a whole array of emotions just ranged up in me at that instant. You know, I was just getting over a friend of mine who I'm doing the halfway house with me and his wife doing it now, had just recently died a week ago from COVID-19. We have 40 plus years. So I'm just getting over the stages of grief with that and being a pallbearer. And then like a week later, this hit me. And I was just angry. I was angry. It was like, when is enough is enough. And then I had to relive my experience, like Dr. Rahim was saying. You know, I think, or I'll speak for me, I was real close. Me and my dad are close, but I was real close to my mom. So having been to prison 7 times, and prior to the last time, on the 6th time, I'll never forget, a day for my mom's birthday, I mailed her a card and I created this poem called The Mother's Love. And she died that day. Wow. And for those who don't know, when you're in prison, you don't get mental health counseling. The only solution that is offered, you go to segregation, so you don't harm yourself. So I was in a good space, and I just wanted to be left alone. I didn't want to go to segregation. I had a relationship with a few of the officers, and I just had to just marinate in that space, you know. And I didn't have the support of getting counseling when I got out, so I went to prison one more time. But just going through that cycle, reliving not only just that, but just reliving police brutality, just, you know, growing up in that lifestyle in the projects. You know, when I decided to make different choices and get into the street life, you know, I've experienced police brutality. So, you know, I've had a police officer put his gun in my mouth. You know, I've had fights with police. So it's like, you relive this stuff, it's like we don't have a voice. You know, and I think Michelle Alexander lended us that voice, but we've been crying this out for hundreds of years. And I know I've been crying it out probably since the early 90s. It's like no one listened because you had the stigma placed on you. And just reliving that over and over. And then it's like, you know, when's enough is enough. You know, my daughter was murdered prior to I got out this time. I had a 10-year plan. I got the counseling, you know, and for those who know me, I'm real radical, and I'm going to speak on the truth. And we got to talk about the elephant in the room. It's like just you get to this space and then bam, life throws you another blow. But I think it makes you resilient. And I think out of crisis, that's where we're going to grow our strength, and we're going to create some stuff. You know, I'm all about like solution focus. So just going through that space and reliving all that stuff is just like processing, like, okay, what part can I play in this? And I refuse to allow people certain spaces. Like in my job, I do workshop training. So I did one on self-care, and I did one on trauma and structural racism. And I've been having conversations with individuals, and I just refuse to allow people change the narrative like they did with Colin Kaepernick. You know, the knee was about police brutality, but the president made it about the flag. So I engaged in a conversation with a Caucasian, and he tried to deflect. He tried to make this about the looting and the burning down our communities. And I recall the riot, I was a kid, like 1 or 2 years old. I recall my brothers and parents talking about how Madison, you know, got burned down, tore up, and it was never rebuilt. But then I reflected where I grew up at USC. You know, when 80s hit and Ronald Reagan and drugs tore the community down, and you go look at that community now, it's a whole different community with a whole lot of resources. So when I started just looking at them visions, like, what card can I play in this? But I refuse to allow him to make it about that. So he called me a black racist. This is the first time I've been called that. But it was like, no, if we're going to talk about, let's talk about the structural racism. And all the stuff from 1619 up to the day just started like coming up. And I think that's where that anger came. I thought it was rage, but it was anger. It was like, I mean, we tried protests. We tried marches. You know, they had Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You burned that down. We had Rosewood. It's like everything we tried, you just trying to dismantle it. It's like, when can we come together collectively, build our own economic base, and be self-sufficient? Because, you know, the police department is a culture. And it took me back to the jail. Jail has a certain culture. It's changed now, but jail had a culture. If you saw somebody got stabbed in a different gang, you had to keep walking. It So it's culture. If you saw somebody stab or beat up some officers, you had to keep walking. So it's culture, and I understand culture until we just banned it and we just rebuild it because it works. They had a code of silence like mass incarceration. Prison works. It's bringing economics to the South because that's what most of the prisons built. So a lot of the farmers, they making all this income off us for that high school education. You don't need I don't know about now, but I know back then you didn't need a college degree to be a correctional officer. And you're starting off making $40,000+. So it's like you're still making money off us. You just move slavery from the field to the jail. So I'm just focusing on all this, like, okay, what part can you play? So I have my vision, and I know my halfway house is just the foundations. It's like, how can I bring these brothers out, give them what they need, reconnect, and just build from that point? What part can I play? Because I know I can't play all the parts. But it's like, enough is enough. And I'll just stand up for what I need to stand up for, and I refuse to allow somebody to change the narrative or deflect from what it really is. And like I told him, the only part that you can do is just go talk to your white friends. Educate them on the injustice. We're not gonna worry about the looting and burning. We'll deal with that. That's my people, we'll deal with that. But the real issue is structural racism. People are tired, they're angry. You had COVID-19 going on. You probably had a lot of people jobless. I don't know how much 1,200 could do for somebody, but it's been 3 months we've been in this. So you get people who lose opportunities, and I get it, but I'm not focusing on that because they're gonna rebuild America, and our communities might suffer, but how can we take the ring and build our own communities up? And it's just like, that's where I've been. So I'm like back on space right now. So now it's like, okay, I have to pass this L6 up. I have to pass. It's not even an option, and I have to open this halfway house because if I don't, my partner died in vain. So it's like, that's where I put a lot of my energy at right now. Because like, we have to do something because I have some sons and I have some grandsons and grandchildren coming up. And me and Addison and I'm finna call Addison Dr. Jackson, but me and Addison Dr. West here had the conversation. I had to reflect. I got my first biracial granddaughter. She's 3 months, and that's my granddaughter. Now, I don't look at her as white or black. That's my granddaughter. She got to grow up in this culture. So it's like, what part can I do? What example can I display for my sons and grandkids? What example can I play? Because I know it's going to take a while to eradicate this thing. But if we don't stand up now, if we don't make a stand now, we just think blow over and they deflect us with something else, with the election or whatever. 3 to 6 months from now, we're going to have another black killer and we're going to be in this space again. So that's just where I'm at right now. So I'm still processing right now.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Addison Jackson.
Hi.
Hey.
Woo, just listening to y'all two, I'm already full because just listening to both of you and Jerry, we come from a lot of similar things, and it's just, I'll say this. I watched a show on Amazon, I'm Not Your Negro. I don't know if any of you all have watched it yet, but I'm gonna tell you, just even saying the name of it just sent chills down my back because it had several different viewpoints of how we came to this point today. The first thing was, we've been doing this for time immemorial. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And then what happens is, we never seem to have relief. You know how you have the steam pipe and you got a relief valve somewhere or that pipe gonna bust. We at that pipe busting moment right now because you give us a couple of crumbs, you give us you mentioned the $1,200, this and that, such and so forth. That right there may be something for someone that really never really had that amount of money at one time, all at one time. It's a big thing. But for most people that's working a regular job, that ain't even rent, to be honest. But going back to what you all were saying earlier, and I'm gonna use a little bit of my own experience. The one thing that sticks out the most is I am tired of having to be the nice black guy. I'm tired of it. I am not, anybody on this call right now knows that I am a nice guy. But I'm actually more nice because I'm afraid of what I've always been told. You a big black dude and you scary. Now, why am I scary? I told you I'm retired from the military. I was in the first Gulf War. I done seen a whole lot of killing. And most people, especially like when I see this stuff, like people going to the court, not the court, but the state building with the weapons and all this and that. We wanna go get our hair cut. Dude, you don't need an AR-15 to get someone to let you get your hair cut. You go to Walmart, go buy you some clippers and cut your own hair. That's what you do, okay? That's first of all. Second of all, for all these people that's either sucker punching people, spraying tear gas and rubber bullets and all this other stuff, they don't have, and these are police, and these are regular citizens that are doing this, but they don't have the foggiest idea of what it feels like to take life. I am one of the few people on this earth that has taken life. But guess what? I did it in the military. So guess what? I'm not a murderer in the viewpoint of American culture. I'm keeping freedom free and all this other stuff. But I have, since 1991, I have struggled with the traumas of that I had to go through in the military. I saw my first murder at 16 years old. So now I look at all the different things as a teen, as a young boy, getting beat up by the CPD. We talked about this last week, getting beat up by TC and them. You know, it's interesting when you think back, and the thing about it, we talk about trauma, but then we talk about trigger. Anybody who has had a trauma has a trigger. And what you do with that trigger is going to affect everything. But guess what? We have so many people in the inner city that don't know their trigger, but they know their reaction. I'm tearing this shit up. Hey, it's going up now because it's a reaction. And with that reaction comes consequence. But where's the consequence when one man, I still to this day have not watched that video of Mr. Floyd dying or being killed. I cannot watch that video because I'm afraid of me. I cannot watch it because every time I've even seen the picture, I immediately turn or I turn it off or whatever because I feel the anger well up in me because I've been Mr. Floyd. I done got choked out by the police. I done got my ribs bruised by the police. I've had a shotgun to the back of my neck in Fort Riley, Kansas, right outside of Fort Riley, Kansas. And guess what? I didn't even do nothing. They said you fit the description of a drive-by shooting in Topeka, Kansas, 60 miles away. But guess where I was at that night, that previous night? On CQ, charge of quarters. That's a 24-hour duty where you got to sit at a desk for 24 hours. That was the only reason that these people let me go, because they called my company and they said, yeah, he was here. But for 45 minutes, I had a shotgun to the back of my head. Now imagine this. You see this all about me, but what about watching the other people, the women All the women on this call right now, y'all know that I'm very, and I told you you're going to find out about me. You know I'm extremely protective. All you got to do is pick up the phone and I'm there. But I also tell people, if you want something to happen, call me last. Because I'm not playing. If you want something to happen, call me last. Because when you call me, you done let me off the leash. And you could hear the intense pain that goes through me. And imagine over the last 2.5 weeks of this just churning and churning and churning. But guess what? That pipe with no relief valve, it does nothing but bust eventually. When they started looting right over here in Olympia Fields, I had to go home. Because number one, so I don't care who you were. You could have been white, brown, black, whatever the case may be. You came my way, you might not have made it home. Because PTSD is real. The stress of people coming at you is real. I don't even go outside. But for each person that's like me, multiply that by the thousands and thousands of people that's been going through this. Now, let's add a multiplier on top of that. We don't understand why don't nobody else understand why we feel the way we feel. I feel it every day, but I don't understand why you don't understand why I feel the way that I feel. And that is the most hurting part of it. I'm gonna let it go right there because I'm about to get on the soapbox.
Ooh-wee. Wow. Dr. Malik, Raheem, before we open this up, do you have anything to say to this before we open this up?
The testimonials are very emotional and beautiful, and it's good to have men, especially black men, being strong enough to be vulnerable. For so long, we had this false sense of masculinity as black men about we can't be vulnerable. And I think we, internalized that, and unfortunately, black women internalized that too. And it's like for a black man to actually show strength and be vulnerable, like my two colleagues have, is just so, rewarding to see.
Yes.
And then to see that they feel safe to be vulnerable around so many sisters is beautiful. And the sisters being accepting and having and keeping a safe space for the brothers to be safe. Because if you look out throughout history, there's always been the black woman that's been the strength for the black man.
Come on now.
Even when we haven't even been supportive for the black woman has always been the strength for the black man. And one of my favorite persons in history, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X, said, the most unprotected person is the black woman. And I love the way the brother said that, you call on me, you better make sure that's what you really want, because that's the last resort. And I like hearing things like that for the black woman to feel that she has a partner, to where it's like if something happens, I can call on my partner. I like hearing that.
Thank you. GSU folks know that I am being well behaved and reserved by facilitating. Of course, this is hard. This is very hard, but I'm going to restrain because it's so powerful. And I just want everybody else to get their thoughts in. I want to also mention that we're expecting Peter, Sharlisa is the president of the Social Work Student Organization for the Master's Program, and Peter is the BSW president for SWASO, for the Social Work Student Organization, which I'm the advisor. And Sharlisa we have Professor Trevon Davis-Neal on mute. She joined us, and Jeanette joined us, Janet joined us, and we have a few others. So I want to say, and I mentioned Peter and Sharlisa because we've had this discussion, and we're also planning to have one around biracial white allies and what they experience as a part two to this. So stay tuned for that. We're looking for a date, but that's to have a deep dive discussion of all of those experiences as well. And probably we're open to any other suggestions. Based on what you've heard from Dr. Rahim, Jerry Davis-El, and Addison Jackson, do you have any comments? Where do we want to start? Anyone? Don't be shy. Go ahead, Teresa.
I sent it in the chat. As soon as he started talking about the whole idea that Mr. Floyd was calling out for his mother, I just had that conversation with my daughter today. And we were driving, and I told her, I said, you know, of all of it's so many different angles of things to cause you to feel. And it's okay to feel in this situation. Sometimes people feel like they can't feel, that they can't say what they think. I give myself permission. If don't nobody else give me permission, I give myself permission to say it's okay for me to feel, for me to think, for me to be angry, for whatever my response is in this, it's okay. I give myself that. And I was telling her the same thing, that it's okay for you to express yourself and to say what you don't like about this, or to say what your thoughts are. And as a mother, I realized that even in a few situations in my own life, when I thought I had it all together, and as soon as I told my mother, the waterworks just came out, you know, and I thought about him, you know, reaching out for his mom, and that was the first thing I said, is that a transition? Did he see her? You know, was this a crossing over? And I thought about that. At best, as bad as what was going on with Mr. Floyd, that was his only sense of comfort for everything that was bad going on with him. And for me to feel that for myself when I speak with my mother, it's the same thing that I know I provide for my children. You know, when things go wrong in their life, and they sit down and say, hey, I want to talk to you, you know, and that probably has shaken me up more than anything, you know, just from the emotional aspect, because I just think that sometimes, especially for a man, again, to be vulnerable, you know, and he wasn't even thinking about being vulnerable. He was just reacting. That's just powerful. It's just powerful.
Thank you. And there's a psychosis, right, in this, with this gentleman, well, not even a gentleman, with this man who had his knee on Floyd's neck. You gotta, I keep telling people, that man had glassy eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did.
And those eyes were not, you look at his eyes, something was missing. There was a void in those eyes. And although we're talking about the race issue, and I'm saying this to all of you because you're going to be in these spaces, we have to remember to bring up mental health around police reform.
Yep.
That man, you can't tell me that man he was not in his body. There was a disassociative moment. And I only saw it once. Like you, Addison, I could not listen. And I only saw just a snippet, but it was enough to mess me up, because what kind of demonic spirit or whatever it is could listen to somebody and say they can't breathe and then call their mama, and you still got your knee on somebody's neck?
And twisted it.
while somebody's locked up. So that said, we really need to think about mental health, advocating for mental health as people are out there protesting.
Yeah.
And they need to be deeply evaluated. We got all this police reform stuff going on. We need to find some kind of system mandate for police officers to go through. All right, who's next?
Just to kind of piggyback on what you said, Kwame Raoul, the Attorney General, is actually trying to get it passed where the police officers have to be licensed with the state. So hopefully that'll add some layer. If that goes through, it'll add another layer of eyes and ears.
What does that mean to be licensed?
Just like social workers have to be licensed, that the police officers would have to be licensed.
Okay, so let me be very clear. I'm going to make a disclaimer right here. I am officially off. I am not a GSU employee at the moment.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, let me sit. So whenever she does that, I have to sit back and say, okay,
Let me go get a drink.
I'm on vacation. You just called me to do this. However, just because you're licensed don't mean you qualify to do anything.
And that's true. And that's definitely true. I would agree.
Yeah, so we got to dig into whatever he's putting out. This is an opportunity to dig further into that. Kathleen, is your hand up?
So I'm not supposed to say where I work, but although my supervisor was fully for this, we're not supposed to draw in our work and stuff. Like you said, you're on vacation. But one of my coworkers, she was the vice president of the psych department. She just left the psych department to go work for the Chicago Police Department. They're implementing mandatory therapy, and they're implementing mindfulness practices. That's just a start, and I know that Lori Lightfoot did announce that they've been looking into this, and it's going to be starting in the next 90 days. But the person she used to worked with us for only probably like a year, not even, she did do a lot of changes, a lot of really positive changes. And she used to work for C4 before she came to work for us. And so I think that it's something, it's something that will happen. And yeah, and I know one of Kwame Rao's assistants. So if there's anything that I can talk to her about, just let me know.
Thank you.
Sure. Would you please elaborate on the mandatory therapy? Because how do they do that? Are they saying that when people are involved in a shooting or in something, then they have to go? Or they have to go, period?
They have to go, period. They have to have mandatory period therapy every, I don't know how often, but each police officer, I know, and there's a code in there that they didn't want each other to know about therapy and all that other stuff. I get that, and because I work with a former police department, Chicago police officer. She's African American as well, and was having a terrible time with all this. But she had said there needs to be mandatory therapy. No matter what they went through, they need to go, at least once a month. It's got to be mandatory, because they don't receive it.
Can I say something? Okay, I'm in the process right now. There is some stuff going on in Illinois. I don't know if you guys know Robin Kelly. There's some things going on where there's going to be some training of people like us, professionals, where we will either, that's the holdup, whether we will be embedded in or respond to shootings, violence, things of that nature, number one. And then number two, there'll be a therapeutic part of it, like you were saying, Kathleen. You know, it's twofold. You know, there's the part where a person has sat down and been through a traumatic part. You will be mandated for X amount. It's almost like going like through EAP at your job, but it's mandated. But then the second part is the everybody piece, where it's even a lot of people are one of the parts that the police officers are worried about is that they feel that they're going to get weeded out because they should have never been a police officer in the first place. Yeah. That's the discussion that's going on right now. Okay. And with that being said, it very well may be true, because it's people that have been bullied when they were young or whatever the case may be. And next thing you know, they have gotten their degree, their bachelor's, and now I'm a cop. Now I'm the one with the power. And we see that over and over and over again. But unfortunately, there are not enough standardized tests in the world that we can use assessments to weed all these people out. It has to be an ongoing thing where you have someone with credentials being able to sit down and say, this person is fit for duty.
If I could add to that conversation, I think it was February. I think his name is the chief of police in Hazel Crest. I think his name, I know his last name Davis, because we got the same last name. So he had Dr. Shanika Jones invited me. They had a community meeting at the police station where it was majority social workers, counselors, psychologists. And what he's trying to create, I think it's table now to open back up. He's trying to create a ride along for like certain calls, because he's like police officers are not equipped for that. So at the time, they was trying to get volunteers while they planned it. And I was supposed to go to their next meeting, which would have been in April. But when they send me some more information, I'll send it to y'all. I know right now, until I pass my test, my time won't permit. But they was trying to create a space and have a conversation. How do we do a ride along? How do we have a social worker present for certain calls? Because when the police come, they're coming to respond to the call. They're not coming to counsel. So like, how do you have that in-between person, like kind of like intercede? And I get it, because I did that when I was doing mental health counseling at HRDI. And one of our clients, well, it was my client, my colleague client, Tasha, and he was acting out, and the ambulance was there, and my director asked me to go across the street, and I had a rapport with the guy. So soon the police came, they didn't come and I just had to pause him for a minute, and I brought the guy back. We got him to the hospital. But, and that makes sense. I don't know how that'll look, how that'll work, but I think that would be a good idea, because I think when the police show up, they're not calling to see your condition. They come into the call. And then depending on the area in the community, it depends on how they might show up.
Correct.
West side of Chicago, when they come, it might come different than if you stay in Olympia Fields. But that's something I'll get Shalisha and Dr. West and add some information they can forward to y'all. That's
you're talking about the same thing I was talking about, the exact same thing.
De-escalation.
Well, see, this where the controversial Dr. Raheem steps in.
Come on.
I really don't think you can reform the police department. The culture is too deep and too heavy that, I mean, you could bring in counselors, you could bring in license, you can make them carry personal insurance. It's like a lot of things you can do, but see, the thing is that I keep hearing about these good officers. But the thing is like, I do believe there are some good, wholesome, sweet people that become police officers. Let me throw that out there. But the culture corrupts them, right? And the thing is that once that, and I was listening to a brief soundbite from the president of the Fraternal Order of Police here in Chicago, and then I was watching CNN where the attorney, the state's attorney from Baltimore, who tried the Freddie Gray case, was talking about the difficulty she had with the police unions there. And it was like, organized crime syndicate outfit. She was talking about how they harassed her, how they tried to intimidate her and the people in her office. And it's like, the thing about it is like You watch this video, this brother in Buffalo get pushed over and bust his head, and they release a statement saying that he tripped, right? And then when they realize there's a video on there, they say, "Oh, our bad, he didn't trip."
Right.
You know, but we got him cared because it was EMTs right behind him. 16 shots. I watched that documentary. And Rob Emanuel, the police chief, the state's attorney at the time, all lied and tried to cover up for this officer. And they went to these local businesses and tried to steal the videotapes. The culture's too deep, right? And so the thing about it is, it's like, so I was like, you know, what is the solution? And to me, the solution is eliminate the police force and taking that money and putting it in social service agencies, putting it in education, putting it in public health, and putting it invested into the community where people can get grants to open up their own business and start their businesses. Because see, the thing about it, I posted on Facebook, do you believe that people are naturally bad? And it was kind of a setup question, because if you say no, then it's like, then why do we really need police? Because the thing about it is people are stealing because people are committing crimes for the most part for opportunity or because they have mental health issues, right? So the thing is that I mean, I really, you know, you can sit here, you say, well, Dr. Rahim, we need police. Well, fine, but the police we have now gotta go. They gotta go. They can reapply, you know, they can reapply and see if they can get in, but they're not gonna have the military gear. Because see, the thing about it is like I heard the brother say that he killed before, right? But see, even in the military, when you were in the Gulf War, there was rules to engagement. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that you shoot to kill first. It was rules to engagement. The police officers are coming to their own citizens, and their first shot is the death blow. It's like, no. You know what I'm saying? I heard the Chicago Police Union president trying to justify the police officer having his knee on his neck. Said, well, that's something we taught. He hit it on his shoulder. He really didn't have it on his neck. Bull, I saw it. You right? So the thing about it is, what I'm saying is like, you can't save this. At some point, you gotta get rid of it and start all over. And you gotta trust that the people are gonna, look, the thing about it is, Chicago, South Side, they always say that we have all these murders and all these crimes and all this stuff, right? There's no resources. You go to Glenview and you have all these resources, and they'll say, wow, this is the first murder we had in 2020. Why? Is it because we are actually animals and we act like animals and we're doing all this stuff? Or is it because we have no resources and we fighting over the little resources we have? Right? So I firmly believe, maybe I'm an optimist, but I firmly believe that if you came out here, you gave resources to the so-called wild hundreds, you gave resources to Inglewood, you gave resources to Bronzeville, you gave resources to Hyde Park, you give resources to Woodlawn, you gave actual resources, and you gave mental health care to actual people who need it in the community. Social service agencies get it. The same amount of money police officers make, teachers should be making.
Oh yeah.
There's no reason for Lori Lightfoot to come out strong arming the teachers union and saying accept it or not, but then when it comes to the police union, like, well, I can't do nothing. You the mayor. I elected you to be the mayor. Be the mayor, right? So I mean, I'm sorry. I really don't understand how the police is getting away with all this stuff, because they walk around with all this military gear. And I was trained in the military. I'm sure the brother can vouch for me that you got a hierarchy of rules of engagement. You don't do that kind of stuff. And then I heard the brothers and sisters saying, well, when the police come, they coming in there with an attitude. That's the problem, right? That's the problem. So like the thing about it, it's a culture. And until you get rid of that culture and change up that culture, we're going to be constantly doing this. we can get them more money, we get more training, we do more psych evals. That's all fine. But just like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said in his op-ed, this racism is like us, and you don't know it until you can't breathe. And this culture of the police department is just like that. As soon as you walk in, it's worse than COVID-19. It infects your entire body, and it is no cure. Because I've seen good people become police officers, and when you got the one-on-one, they'll talk to you like you're human, and they'll be sweet, but then let them get around one of their buddies. And all of a sudden, you is us against you.
But Dr. Rahim, is it just the police department that needs reform, or like does everybody have a role to play?
Social workers can be reformed too. I ain't gonna lay off of y'all.
You know what?
I ain't gonna lay off of y'all. Us professional counselors, hold on, you asked me the question. Us professional counselors need to get reformed. Our whole mindset got to get off of that whole law and order, because law and order is basically saying that we believe in white supremacy and that black and brown people are natural born criminals. That's all law and order really is, because black and brown communities are over policed. Just like the brother said, these brothers and sisters came to get a haircut and they were carrying M16s, and you didn't hear Donald Trump saying anything about law and order. He was saying they were patriots. These brothers and sisters out here marching, and he telling them they criminals, they thugs. You know what I'm saying? I'm the law and order president. It's a whole mindset shift that need to be changed. And
Yes.
I'm calling on professional counselors, I'm calling on social workers, I'm calling on psychologists, I'm calling on public health administrators to lead the charge.
And I want to comment with that, with the culture too, right? Because when we talk about culture, and that's the challenge when we look at police reform and thinking, if we correct police reform, then we're done. However, the culture is the American culture. We have all been complicit in our culture. We were raised in this culture. We were conditioned. Our families were conditioned. You were conditioned, if you say something, you're a troublemaker, so don't say anything. You see it at work. People go, you can't tell me, you haven't experienced it at work. When things should have been said, but nothing gets said, and everybody say, just forget about it. And the dysfunction continues, and we function in the dysfunction because we want to get paid. We want to pay rent. We want to drive a certain car. We want to do all these things. So those of us who have been trained to go get this education, we go get it, and our people are no further. Our society's no further because we drank the Kool-Aid too. And they have bought us out with a monthly secured paycheck. And so we say nothing. And I'm saying that to say there's no difference, Shalisa, in the police department, the education system, any institution. We're all a part of it. And if we remain silent, we're complicit and we participate.
Akia has a question. Akia has a question or comment.
But before we go to Sister Akia, I want to say, hi, Shalisha. Your favorite professor agree with me. Ah.
Well, no, but let me say this though.
No, it's Kia's turn. It's a kid's turn.
There's no kids. Is that a Sora? You call it, who you calling?
Akia.
He's grown over here. Hey,
so thanks again, Dr. Rahim for the invitation. And thank you all for creating this space. I'm usually not a person who is very talkative or super voiceful about my feelings. I don't like being vulnerable at all. And this has been going on for so long. I'm just like, every time I just throw my hands up, like, what the heck? And then there's this like big push for like, oh, what can we do? We need to make a change. We need to do this. Then it dies out again. Then it happens over and over. And it's just been this consistent cycle. So I'm always asking myself, well, like, dang, well, what do I do? What do I do? You know, the golden ticket question or whatever. One like small highlight based on like the conversation about policing in the communities and where to start with the change. Right now I work for San Diego State. And while I'm not happy about everything that they have done in the past, you know, as a Black student who went there and now a Black employee, they passed a resolution for all of our criminal justice students to take a class on policing and police relations in the Black community. So starting fall 2021, every criminal justice major will have to take that class as part of their degree requirements or as an option. I'm not sure yet, but it's something that's for sure going to happen. So I thought to myself, that's a good idea. But, you know, one class is better than no class, but is one class really going to make a difference? Most of the students, this is a PWI, so at San Diego State, usually in the classes, there's maybe 1 to 3 Black folks in each class, so I wonder how much that's going to help. I think it will help. I saw a post the other day of a teenager holding up a sign that said, "This is the last generation you're going to F with." So it kind of made me hopeful, like, you know, okay, so if we're educating these students about these things, you know, more white students are learning about this. Is this where the weeding out begins? Like, are we teaching these things to students earlier so that when they do get to police forces or whatever police end up reforming into in the future, like, is this really going to help? But I did think it was a good step forward. They also said they were going to offer the class for little to no cost to current police officers in the city. So I thought, you know, that might help a little bit too, but I just don't know. But I think that's a start. And then again, going back to the question of me asking myself, like, what do I do? This year I participated in the primary election and I helped out by being a poll worker. So for me, it's like, you know, I'm okay with expressing the feelings, but, you know, my ultimate goal is to be able to figure out, like, okay, what are our steps? What can we do next? And it's just kind of hard to navigate that sometimes. So I don't know if I added to anything, but, you know, that's just what I was feeling at this moment.
Well, we appreciate you speaking up, and it's very important, right? And everything, because it helps us to think about things that are different, right, at various levels. One step is a class. I would push for institutions and academic institutions to go further though, right? Because if we're talking about true change and we're looking at structural racism, and if we're looking at systematic structural racism and what it is, then how about San Diego State, Governor State, Wilberforce, just name the school, it doesn't matter. How about looking at their administration? And how is it set up? Is it a very archaic traditional model? For long, we at Governor State, we've been around for over 50 plus years, and for the first time in history, we have our first African-American female president this year, for the first time.
That's too Mexican.
Say it again.
We have our first female president as well, who's a woman of color and a very well-deserving chief diversity officer. So
right.
We see tiny changes.
So what it says is, right, and that's fine. I'm saying I want us to push. I don't want to say, oh, that's nice, they got that. No, what are you doing with that office? Because if you're doing the same thing in that office that people did before you with white skin, then what's the difference? If you're doing the same, if we're maintaining culture, then have we really changed anything? Or did we just put another face in place with the same practices, right? And that's what we have to push ourselves on. How did we change these policies and practices in these institutions? I've watched in 12 years, at least 10 African-American brilliant women walk away from GSU when tenure faculty said nothing. And they left. That's not okay. That's not okay at all. So I'm hoping, I've said this, so anything I say on here, I've said to all of GSU before, including the president. So I don't mind saying this over and over. I'm hoping that there will be a change and that we are not maintaining status quo. In social work, there's something that's called, are you a change agent or are you maintaining status quo? And that's that question, Nakia, what am I really doing in these spaces? Am I really impacting change? Thank you. Who's next?
Look like another one of my former students, Foxy Cleopatra.
Foxy?
Hi.
Hey,
Can you guys?
My students are taking over.
I just wanted to talk about the feelings that I had when I saw the video. I have a 12-year-old son. So it's very difficult watching that, and then trying to explain certain things to him. And he's the sweetest. Will do anything for you, and trying to understand, explain to him why certain people see him in a certain light. It's I can't even get my words out. It's hard. I've been thinking about a time when me and him, I was driving and it was dark and I couldn't see. Like, it was another car that had their high beams on, and I had my high beams on, but I was the one that got pulled over. And I don't know if I've ever been that scared being pulled over before, and I think part of it was because everything that had just happened with Sandra Bland, and then him being in the back seat, because he was just like, what did we do? Like, why are they pulling us over? I don't understand what we did, Mommy. Like, we didn't do anything. And I'm like, no, like, we didn't do anything. But I tried to make sure I did everything that my father told me. Make sure that you go into a populated or, like, well-lit area so that you can see and they can see and you're not alone. And I tried to, like, call somebody so they can hear the conversation that was happening, but it was just weird. Like, there's no lights, and it's like, well, why? Like, do you live over here? And yeah, I live over here. And like, why are you over here? And you could be blinded somebody. And I had to, like, I'm not a very I don't know. I feel like I'm an assertive person, so if I feel like I'm being wronged, I have to say something. But I couldn't. I feel like I didn't have a voice then because I was too worried about my son in the backseat. And then now with everything that's been happening with George Floyd, I just feel I've been having nightmares, really, like, about people pulling us over and, like, being overly aggressive. And I really don't know. I don't really know how to talk to my son about that. Like, I told him, if you have questions or any concerns or any type of feeling that you have, you can come and you can talk to me, but I don't really know how to help him because of all of the feelings that I'm having on myself. So
It's all right.
And I think that the incident has brought up a lot of emotions and feelings for people who may not have experienced them before. It just kind of brought everything to a head for a lot of people. And so the fear that you had, that needing to, protect your son, maybe you felt like you didn't have a voice because your son was there and you needed to protect your son. So everybody's at a heightened state of staying safe.
Would people please comment on, I think Tanisha is bringing up a really valid point. What do you say to your children? This is a 12-year-old son, right? And I wanted to say, when I heard the men talking, all I have in my head constantly is part of the whole art of war, and Addison and the military people know this far better than I do, but I do know that the ultimate way to destroy a community is to first take their men out.
Yes.
Be very clear, right? Take their men out
Yes.
first. That said, what do we say to our children? And that's what bothers me, because I know the strategy is it hasn't been successful. That's the thing, it hasn't. But at the same time, it is doing just what Tanisha said. It is terrorizing us because it's a terrorist act. That was a terrorist act. Call it for what it is. It was a public execution, and it was sending notice. And it did exactly what it's supposed to do. Make you not able to sleep at night, PTSD triggers, you remain silent. And then, most of all, is training children already. This can happen to you. So what do we say to our children? What does this woman say, this mother say to her son?
You know what? Honestly, it's a difficult thing, because I recall even with my own son when he was younger and had got his car and started driving around, and at that time it's like it's an awkward thing, because one minute you're telling them to be a man, I want you to speak up, I don't want you to hide, say your thoughts, don't cower, talk up, you gotta say it, don't hide from it, be assertive. And to then turn around and say, well, if you get pulled over, don't be assertive, you know, give them what they ask for, make sure that you have your hands outside of all the things that you shouldn't even have to say, but those are things that I had to tell him. If you get pulled over, I'm so focused on making certain you have your driver's license, registration, all of that in the envelope, have everything right there together. Leave that hand up at all times, even if you see the lights stay up, you just thinking in your head. And incidentally, my son and two of his friends, when they were 18, if I remember correctly, you can Google it. They actually wound up filing a lawsuit against Burnham police, because they were looking for a party over in Calumet City, Burnham area. And at night, it's all dark. And they were driving around trying to find the address, and it was only a one way. And so every time they looked around, they had missed it again, missed it again. And the police sitting there and profiled them. Oh, you all are up to no good. And literally, when they came around that third time, slammed them against the car and everything. We wound up filing a lawsuit against them. And this come to find out, this was something that they had done quite often. I may not necessarily have anything to offer you other than I have personally experienced what your fear is as a Black mother, as a mother of a Black child, a Black male, and having had gone through that. And even though my son is considerably older now, I still preach the same thing. I have the same fear. My son, he get off from work, a grown man. And I tell him, call me when you get in. Call me when you get in the car. I want to know you made it safe. When he calls me or send me a text and say, hey, mom, I made it home safe, all of a sudden, as a parent, and he lives in another state, I can go to sleep. So I can't tell you, honestly, that will change, because the conditions of our being are as they are. And so I can't tell you that that's going to change for you. I can't tell you that there's something magical as a parent that you can say. I wish I had it, because if so, I would use my own advice. The only thing I can tell you is that as the years pass, unless things get considerably better, which I'm almost right there with Dr. Malik, it's very unlikely. I think we'll shift some things around, we'll move some things around. That's a sad statement to even make, But I will say to you that it's my advice to him has not changed. Still the same exact thing. And it's hard to say to a young man that you're pulled over and someone is talking to you and mistreating you and you can't even speak up for yourself, that I got to tell you that you got to cower down and say yes or no, so sir, you know, I mean, I got to tell you that because all I want you to do is get home.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't unfortunately have anything else other than what I got for you. And as I said, I give you nothing no more than what I give my own self every single day.
You got to understand one thing right now. The physiological damage that you having right now is caused from cognitive dissonance. All y'all know what cognitive dissonance is. It's that uneasy feeling that you get when you know that something's supposed to go this way.
And it goes another.
And it goes the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge. But I'm going to give you a real eye opener. I make no qualms. I've been carrying weapons since I was 17 years old. Okay. And I'm not saying that I do it for bravado or anything. I do it for personal protection and as a hobby. Okay. However, one thing that is the game changer is when you see one side or a force of sorts, and I look at it as in micro, meso, and macro levels. I'm micro, okay? And the black people right now, I'm speaking as the meso. If we learn how to defend ourselves, not only just from the police, because we've been talking about police this whole time. It's other folks that feel that they have the right to treat us as if they are the police, or either call the police on us.
Talk about it.
If you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to call the people on you. Go right on ahead. Feel free. However, you might not like what you get. Number one, not everybody is afraid to carry. Okay? When you run my license plate, it didn't used to be like this. But when you run my license plate, you know, number one, I got concealed carry. You know, I'm a private detective in the state of Illinois. Plus, you start pulling up FBI numbers and NSA numbers. They like, oh, who is this? Okay? I've had cops call me up, pull me over just to find out who I am. Because all these numbers start flashing up. And if you ever get a chance to go into or look at a police computer in their car, it don't just be like, hey, it's a number. It start flashing. Okay? And what happens is that starts them to be like, oh, I got something going on here. Now, it could be if I was a wanted criminal, it flashed too. Okay? But at the same time, teach your children, yes, how to act, but teach them how to defend themselves too. Because the very same, see, it's a poor person that can't defend themselves. Because when the pipe busts, all that anger that is all willy-nilly could have been focused in thoughtful conversation and action. People know who they can mess with and who they can't mess with. Now, if you out there, you know, burning stuff down and looting and all that, you giving them the right to mess with you. But if you are a thinking person that not just because you got a degree, it's because you're using what you got your degree in, the thought process of it. And when we look at that, we say, okay, yes, I have to speak to everyone with respect, not just the police. Because if you come off being a smart behind, what you want, what you stop me for, you know, you're gonna get the same thing back. I'll be one sec. And then when you literally get the response that you are putting out there, then what you know the saying, you can get more bees with honey than you can with shit. Okay? So when you look at that, you say to yourself, okay, if I want to be alive, I'm gonna speak the way that I'm supposed to speak, but I'm gonna also defend myself and my family and the people I need to defend the way I need to defend.
Let Dr. Raheem respond, Addison.
There's a saying that you have to earn respect, right? And I totally disagree with that. I think that's one of the biggest lies ever told. As a human being, you have the right for respect, right? I think one of the problems is that I think Dr. West said it so best when she said that if we're really going to look at these structural racism, we got to not only stop at the police, we got to look at the education system, we got to look at the housing, we got to look at the healthcare, we got to look at all these systems that has been historically destroying Black and brown people for years. And the thing is that it's like going to what Tanisha said, I could feel her pain. Yes. Because it's like the thing is like I remember one time my son and I went to a WNBA game, the Chicago Sky, and we were going to get the Chicago Sky. And he's independent journalist and photographer, so he's coming in here with his camera, right? And he has a nice little camera, it's just like this one, right? Nice little camera. And he's coming in, they say, oh, well, you can't bring that in. And he says, why not? It says on the website that I can. And so the young ladies that was at the doing the security, they said, no, you can't bring it in. It's like, but so she pulls up on his phone the website and shows, see, it says I can bring it in. So they go get the person head of security, and he comes over. He's trying to explain to my son he can't bring it in. So he said, okay. He said, yeah, it's on our website. So my son brings it up again and shows him that it's not on the website, that it says that he is able to bring in that camera, right? So he says, okay, well, I'll be back. So a little bit away is the Chicago Police Department sitting there. So he walks over there, and he gets the Chicago police to come over. Now, my son wasn't being belligerent or anything like that. He was just, explaining his position. And because the gentleman was losing the debate, he went to go get the police. So when the police came over there, it was no more talking. All of a sudden, it was like either you're going to take the camera and get away with it, you're going to leave, or you're going to be arrested, right? And so the one guy was a Black sergeant, right? And he was standing there. And I was talking to another police officer. He butted in the conversation and said, well, we the police. I said, but you the police. But I said, I think you handling this situation all wrong. He said, oh, well, who are you? So I reach in my wallet, pull out my card from Wilberforce, hand it to him. I said, I'm Dr. Malik Rahim. I said, in actuality, one of my things of studying is racial trauma, racial microaggressions, and identity development. And I like to study Black men who have a false sense of acculturation to white dominant society. I said, would you like to be interviewed by me? Because I would love to do that. And I'd like to do training for the Chicago Police Department. And so he's sitting there looking at my card. He's like, so you have a PhD? I'm like, yeah. But you want to answer my question. Would you like to participate in my study? Because you seem to have a pathological sense of acculturating to white superiority and white supremacy. And so he's looking at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's almost borderline narcissistic personality disorder. Do they ever give you all psychological testing for the police department? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I don't know. The way y'all walked over here, it really seemed antisocial. It almost seemed like y'all were psychopaths. I said, what type of personality, I said, what kind of assessments do they use for you all? And so he looks at my card again. He's like, just let him in. Just let him in. So he goes to sit down. And it really pissed me off because I did everything I could to remain calm, because the thing is that the way they approached us,
Mm-hmm.
They didn't approach us in looking for a solution. Their attitude was, now that we're here, conversation stop. You got to put up the camera or you're going to be arrested if you keep doing this, if you refuse to leave the premises. And that was their attitude. So the thing about it is I'm listening to Foxy Cleopatra's story, and it seemed like it's the same type of story. And we have these traumas that are just staying dormant inside of us. Because what I've heard her say is this built up from the Sandra Bland incident several years ago. And then it resurfaced probably with the Ahmaud Arbery case, and then resurfaced with the Breonna Taylor case. Then so it keeps going dormant and then it coming back, dormant and coming back. And one of the problems is that as people of color, we have, unfortunately, been convicted of the worst crime against humanity. And that's trying to find our humanity. And so the thing is like, the frustrating I feel for you, Tanisha, is that you trying to do everything you can to protect your son. And the thing is that I met your son. He's a very intelligent young man. Unfortunately, there's only so many things we're going to be able to do. But you have been raising him to be a great young man, to be a fine contributor to the community. And I say, keep doing that, right? But I will also encourage you to go and get this trauma relieved, right? Counseling, therapy is great to get this trauma relieved because it's killing all of us. And the thing about it is like, I remind you as I remind myself, we can only be strong for so long,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the thing about it is we walk around here thinking, trying to be so strong for everyone else. But if we're going to really be strong for everyone else, we got to go get the help that we need to get this trauma off of us.
I want to say real quick if I can, when she was speaking, I was just reflecting back to my mom. I was mama's boy. But it's like, she's a strong black woman. When I heard you talking, I was just wondering, my mama rest in peace, what was she thinking when I was in that lifestyle? Her prayers got me through. So when I heard you, it just made me more adamantly know that I have to fulfill my vision. I'm just a firm believer, like I said, in my solution, that I found my purpose in my pain. So my purpose to open the halfway house, for those who don't know, I'm a certified alcohol drug counselor. So I'll be getting guys coming from prison who's dealing with drug issues, mental health issues, because when I hear your story, it's like, we need some men. Because my house is a safe space. I guarantee you, if you cross that threshold, my wife ain't got to worry. I don't have that fear. I lived 2 lives in one lifetime. I faced death. I chased death. I've saw it. They've been to war overseas. I've been to war in the streets and prison. Same war, right? So and I came out. So I like, God saved me for a time, like when I reflect back. And now I'm on this side, and I got a little life. Life is great, but that stuff don't define me. So I know I need the LCSW credentials, not to solidify me as a man, but just to get through certain doors and set up certain places. And it's like, my father, what he did the best, he protected and he provided. But he didn't know how to give me that emotional security I need. And that's what I give my sons. And I got a 24 and 32-year-old, and I give them that, but I don't have that fear. I just don't have that fear because when I came to GSU and I was in my healing after my daughter was murdered, and I met Dr. West and Dr. Glass and Addison, and I got that support, and then I met Dr. James Kirk, and I got with a lot of brothers from prison, and probably a lot of brothers on the street. I got a chance to cry in front of men and be vulnerable. Because we holding all that stuff in and we can't cry because we live out the myth. Men don't cry. Men don't tell. We bought into all that stuff and we start acting it out, not knowing that if we weren't traumatized, at some point we were, but all that vicarious trauma that we was going through, seeing people stab, seeing people get up, beat up, seeing all this stuff, right? So it's like, I'm adamant and I know I have to do this because I hate when I go into certain jobs and I do not allow them to put me in that box, that stigma. When people learn about my past and see that I wear the suits and like made it out, and I'm not an exception to the rule. There's way more brothers in prison, way sharper than me, just need the opportunity, need the support, need the resource. And they can come out and shine. And that's why I'm adamant about opening this house. Like, we got to get some men in there so they can go into these homes, like I was saying, and protect our women and provide and protect and support, emotional support, financial support. But society has written them off. There's a big stigma against guys coming from prison. And then you got all them other discriminations. You know, I had a chance, me and my wife make a nice income to move in a condominium across the street, Park Tower, Lake Point Tower, whatever the name is. My background stopped me. Now that my case is sealed, I got an opportunity to go there, but I don't even want to go there. I know I spend my dollars. So we're looking at a house, but I'm saying I have to go through all these, it's like I gotta like go through all these challenges after you, society says when you do your crime, you pay, that's BS. All these stigmas. And I tell you, God got a sense of humor because I used to illegally carry a gun. Now I reformed my life, get my cases sealed. Now I got a chance to platform. But it's like when I look at all this, like I have to stay on purpose. And that's just my call and solution to our race as an individual. That's my way of giving back and just getting these brothers and giving them safe space and support and getting all, you know, Dr. West, Addison, and other people to come on board and let's help build these men so we can go back to these houses, so we can get our communities out. Because our boys out there hurting and they're afraid. They crying out for help. They're crying out for help. I just had that conversation with my nephew. He's doing, and he's hurting. We had a conversation. I love him. He had his own popcorn shop, but he was angry. He was angry. He was trying to explain about the looters, and I said, I get it, nephew, I get it. But I didn't come from that era. I came from the era when we're going to address the issue. So we wouldn't have been busting store windows. We done went straight with the cops. If that's why our anger gear, we went, I've had fight with police. So I'm like, we won't win on that. That's suicide. We won't win that way. So how can we strategically stick a way to bring ourselves out, support our family, leave with legacy, and give back to our individual communities? Because they might not, and I've been through Harvey, Calumet City, and Dalton. I got a cousin on a body shop and a house in Dalton. Some of them, they're not going to get rebuilt. And if we don't go back in and rebuild it or build up some men that come into these houses and help rebuild them, you know, it's like we're going back another 100 years. And as a social worker, I tell God sometimes you got a sense of humor. Because when I looked at Harvey and I got the halfway house, I'm telling God, what the hell? Right? But he put me back in this impoverished community, and then I had to wrestle with the people who look like me that was aldermen could make it happen. And I'm going through some of the craziest conversations. But I had to endure. I mean, they asked me, why Harvey? What? Really? You know, one alderman told me, why don't I take them to Moment, so Kankakee and let them farm. Like, what the fuck? So these are conversations I had to go and convince them without revealing who I was in the past. Without saying, you know what, I've been in prison, I check. No, we don't need all that. We're gonna have a conversation about building back up the community. I'm a professional. I'm not B35789 anymore, right? So it's like, and these are the conversations that you have to endure, but I think my past allowed me to be resilient and stay the course. Because sometimes I want to give up the course. Every now and then I get a moment. Every now and then I get like, is this in vain? Every now and then I want to just spend time at home with my wife, my grand. Every now and then I get in that, but I know my why. And that's what pushes me, because I vowed when I got out of prison, my daughter was murdered, and my mom died while I was in jail, I said their life would not be in vain. So that's my why. When I want to give up, that's my why. Because I do okay financially, right? And some of our people, when they make it out and they forget where they come from, they forget the struggle. You know, when I look at God, where he brought me from June 25th to 2010, where I'm in now, it's like, wow, it's amazing. So I don't get caught up in the stuff. I don't get caught up in the cards, the suit. I don't get caught up in that because it's like I'm on purpose. That's why I don't have that fear. I just don't, and it's ironic, I don't have that fear. I'm not afraid to die. I'm not. For a just cause, I'm not gonna die for no foolishness. But it's like, if I have to die, it means so many of our leaders got killed or gave up their lives for us to have a better life. So if I have to give up this little funny body for my children, my wife, my grandchildren, people look like me, and just humanity as a whole, I'm willing to make the sacrifice. And a lot of people don't want to make that sacrifice. So it's like, okay, I can't be the model right now. What can I do to stay on purpose? And I know when I'm committed to something, and GSU trained me just to support with the staff and love. When I'm committed, it's gonna happen. So it's like I have to make this happen. I have to make this happen because if not, we losing our boys. I worked in the high school. I worked at Marshall High School. They told me I wouldn't make it because I had a suit on. Like, I'm from the west side of Chicago. Don't let the suit fool you. And when I quit, them guys cried. Them little guys, they wanted me back when I left. So it's like, I can put on the suit, put me in the jungle, I find my way through. Because it's a certain swag you got when you come from certain communities. There's a certain look, like Dr. West was saying about that officer, I saw that look. There's a certain look that you get when you come from the streets. They know. So it's like we have to, I can't say it enough, get our men back into our communities, get our men back into these homes, let them take their rightful place. And then we get our communities back because they didn't divide our homes. They divided, they destroyed it, and we played into it. And I've been saying when I first came to GSU, because before I was a social worker, I was a hustler, politically correct. I was an entrepreneur, but not businessman, call it what you want to call it. Critical thinking, I had gang conscience in the street. I just didn't have a label. But I knew when I went back to school, I wasn't going to work for nobody. I just refused because my lifestyle showed me I could be an entrepreneur, right? I just had to navigate through these systems, and I have to learn how to trust people. I had to trust all over again. I had trust issues. I had all these issues, but I didn't have a good cry until my daughter got murdered a month before I got out, and when I had that fishbowl conversation. And just being, when you come from that space, you're just looking for that comfort. When I had that talk with Dr. West, I just pulled my heart out first time I met her. But I could look at her eyes and knew she cared. And that's the first time I met her. That's the stuff where guys like us need coming from prison, because we traumatized. And we try to come back out and get into that place where we left at. So we left with all these vices. My family got to eat, so I got, we left with all this stuff because nobody else gives us an opportunity or nobody else showing us the way. We don't want handouts. When I came from jail, I didn't want a handout. My wife taught me how to budget $20. She thought it was crazy. I called her one week. I budgeted $20 for a whole week. I thought that was impossible. But she taught me some stuff because nobody taught me that, because the street taught me how to get money and spend it. Nobody told me to save a little bit. So it's just the stuff that we just naturally don't get because we so caught up in the cycle and all the external stuff that's going on around us. We so caught up in that and the stigmas. But I'm grateful for my journey, and my heart really go out for you because when I think about my mom, but I'm not afraid. I don't have that fear. I don't walk around with that fear. I refuse to let them put that fear in me. I refuse to let them define who I am as a man. I just refuse. I refuse. I didn't get this far for nothing. I lost a lot of good guys along the way. And if it wasn't for the cameras now, a lot of these things wouldn't even be posted on these social media. And I've been in them incidents. I supposed to have been a Floyd. I've been there. So it's like he's saying it for a purpose. So it's like, do we live in our purpose or do we get distracted? And I think we really need to have this conversation. I mean, it's just having me reflect on some things. So I really appreciate y'all for having me.
Thank you, Jerry. It's important and there's so much to say, right? And we just want to, I'm trying to guard what I'm saying and just make sure we allow for those. I know Tawana, Siobhan, we have you on here, Sedona and Beard Administrative Service. If any of you who haven't said anything, we want to make sure we allow your voice in here because we have we're almost up. We got about 15 more minutes and we want to bring everybody else's voice in. And those who have said something, if you have something else to say. And I'll say later what I'm thinking, Tanisha, some other ways. So Tawana, you said you wanted to say something first.
Yes, first I want to thank Shirlesha for inviting me to participate. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For participating. So I've been silent and listening since the beginning, but I just wanted to make a couple points, and not just to be all over the place, but when the question asked came up about what do you say to your sons, I have a 30-year-old son. And at first, in the beginning, when he was younger, I said, oh, you're quiet, he's obedient, didn't talk out of turn, wasn't disrespectful. And I never really thought about him coming across, the police. And when he was like preteen or right when he became a teenager. So I don't remember having much of a conversation with him. But I've gone through periods where I've been very radical in my thinking about the approach to the system, how to empower my children, to not just accept anything. But when my son, I had one opportunity to see him angry about something. And this is when he became a man, 17, 18, 19. I said, whoa. Okay, so how do we, how do I send him in the streets every day when I know that he'll be passionate about things and he'll want to stand on his rights and he'll want to make his thoughts known and speak up for himself. And then I said, the hell with it. You're a man, you're a Black man, you're not subservient to anyone. The police, we don't live in a police state. You should be able to say what you want to say when you want to say it, and the hell with it. Then I thought, well, do I want to offer my son up as a martyr? Because these cops will take him out. Because that's the conflict that he has to deal with. And he'll just get that one cop that will flip it, and then my son will be dead. And to this day, as a 30-year-old, we still have that conflict. We still talk. My son went and he protests. He educates himself politically, very still opinionated about things, and he has this righteous anger. And he has to make a choice every time he steps out that door. Is this the day when I have to stand on my feet and exclaim that I'm a Black man, that I'm a man? And I support him in any way that he feels that he needs to communicate that to whoever he, comes across. And I will support him in that. But this last week, going on to this, everything that's happened, I've been so conflicted. Me and Shalisha, we had this conversation. And then Facebook conversation. And this was the night of the riot, the protest, and then what they want to call the riots later that night. And I thought, we're not going to have a change until we burn it down. And I don't mean physically burn it down. I mean symbolically burn it down. If it means some wood, some bricks, structures got to come down, they got to come down. And then out of the ashes, we'll have something else. And I just became so radical with it. I just was thinking about some old things that I had listened to. I listened to Farrakhan. I went back to some old sermons and speeches, and not all, from Christian leaders, preachers, and I'm so conflicted because I'm like, nothing's going to change, unfortunately, until there's blood in the street. And I know that sounds so radical. And I'm so conflicted because when I drove down Stony Island and I saw what they were doing to my neighborhood, and I say that even caused conflict because they're me. But I know why they did it. I know they did it because we've been subjugated, poor piss-ass education, no housing, healthcare pitiful. That's why we're dying now from COVID. And I just been all kind of emotions because I know change is not going to come just from these supposed police reforms, because if it doesn't happen on a legal aspect, criminal justice and the laws, it doesn't matter. We're not going to see any change. We're not going to see a first degree. I believe that man killed George Floyd because he wanted to. He had every intention to. He set out to do it. And until you could get a first degree murder, it's not we're not really going to see any real change. And I'm trying to balance that in my heart about wanting something radical. And I don't think it's going to take some more years, some more decades for that to happen. And then I think about the younger generation. Do they even have it in them to get out on those streets and affect change? I made a comment to Shalisha, what makes United States, the citizens, our brothers and sisters, so different from these other countries? How many people died in South Africa? How many people in these other countries died to affect change? So that's where I am. I came on here to maybe get some more insight, to get another type of understanding. That's all. I know you got 15, probably now 10 minutes left, but.
We have more time. We actually have more time. And as I was saying to Shalisa, we want to make sure, be very intentional about how we end. And I just wanted to acknowledge, so we do have more time, but I wanted to acknowledge people who we haven't had a chance to hear from. And we thank you for your comments and all of your internal conflict, because that is the power and the beauty in life. If you hear snoring going on, it's my dog who's snoring in the background. I can't control that. I think she heard me, so she sort of slowed down on that. But I think while we hear the other comments, please, and Tanisha, I have you in my spirit right now about this, and as well as Tawana, I want us to think about, oh, that dog is beautiful, Kia. I want us to think about, you know, I just want to say something about the dungeons like at the end, but there's some power here, and we need to refocus and continue to put our energy forward thinking, even with all of the stuff that's going on. So I'll say something about that a little later. Trevon, or who else do we have going? Beard, Sedona, can't see y'all. You want to say something? Okay.
I'll go. I'm Atlanta, by the way. I didn't want to put the video on because I'm having a bad hair day, like a really bad day.
Oh, I'm having a real bad hair day too.
so I just kind of like kept it on my logo. But first, I want to thank Shalisha for inviting me. Her and I have been friends for a really long time. We've mentored together, and we talk about these type of things literally all the time. So, and it's like no holds bars. There's no judgment, even if we have difference of opinion sometimes. So I appreciated her for inviting me. I actually thought I missed it. But it's really good to hear different insight from different people with different points of views, and just to kind of piggyback off of everybody else. Like, as a mother of a Black son who is 23 years old now, who's literally not into anything, but he's a scientist by nature, by nature. This is his God-given talent. And then now being a grandmother of a first Black son, little boy makes the emotion even more difficult, because during the time when Rodney King was, that whole thing with Rodney King, it kind of sparked in me. So I kind of grew up my son with, having to deal with teaching him how to deal with the police. We even have this thing now when he leaves out the house. I don't care if he's mad at me or whatever, he has to say he loves me, kiss me on the face. Because not only for the police brutality or the violence, but the violence that surrounds our communities, I'm constantly worried as a Black mother of a Black son. And he's 23 years old now, so it's just a lot. And then now to see this happen with George Floyd, he's very upset about it. He's a lot more voiceful than he usually is about a lot of things. This actually sparked the first time that I ever heard my son curse in front of me. I didn't stop him at the time. I was just like, okay, because he just was emotional. It was a lot. And even watching the video, when I clicked the video, I had no idea. I read the caption first. I had no idea that I would be watching a man take his last breath. I had no idea. So like for a couple of nights, 2 or 3 nights, I couldn't sleep because I couldn't unsee it. And then knowing that my child is an only child and a mama's boy, in a sense, that could have been my baby calling for me. And it was nothing I could absolutely do it. And now the video is out there for me, if I was still living, to see every time, or people talking about it constantly. So it's just a lot of different emotions with that situation, and also being a Black entrepreneur for the past 10 years and doing business startup and nonprofit startup. My goal was always to educate our community on becoming entrepreneurs the right way, the legal way, and tapping into their talents that they wouldn't usually tap into. So I know us as a culture that we are dope people, we are dominant, and that we have hidden talents that nobody usually taps into. Also being a person who teaches etiquette to young girls and realizing that our women or young girls that's coming, that will be growing into queens at some point, has no idea how to carry themselves properly as well. So I feel like it gives the young men excuses as well too. Like I want them to be more than just empowered. I want them to have something to live for, besides just, what they think they should, or I don't want them to think they don't have a voice because they do. With the protests going on right now, I think it's pretty dope how the young people are stepping up, and how everything is. I think I don't know. I'm kind of like with Dr. Raheem on this one too. Like, not so much as disbanding the whole police department. However, the reform, it's so many different ideas that you can put out there that what can change. But I believe sometimes people don't realize that the police become numb to the circumstances, and they just join in. Some of them join for the right reasons, and then once they are part of this organization, then they become who they are. Because it's that good old boy network, as you would say, and then they turn it, you morphing, how they say you become a product of your environment. So you become a product of your environment, and then they no longer know how to be themselves. And they can't even release when they go home because there's so much dark to it. When you, Miss West, when you said that you saw something in an officer, I'm always, and Shirley should tell you this, I'm always the person who always says the eyes don't lie. So the eyes didn't lie for him. He was that person. He was that person that you could be like, oh my God, this dude is not even here. This is a shell of a person. And then later on, when I was reading that his wife divorced him immediately, I'm thinking maybe she wanted to get away from him, and this was her out. This was her out to divorce this man who probably was a monster at home, and they never had children because she refused to, or maybe it just wasn't in God's plan for this man to bring children in the world. Could you imagine if he brought children in the world, who they would be growing up, even if this was happening right now, and they would stick with him, and they would probably shun their mother who divorced the husband, who divorced their father? Okay, so I'm just thinking that that was her out, and she knew that the mental health in him was very, very real, and that he never tackled it. And being a part of the police department, it empowered him even more. And even if that day he didn't say, well, I'm going to find me somebody to kill, once he got on him, he knew this is my moment to kill him, and there will be no consequences. He probably never ever thought like, oh, it'll be a little rallying, it'll be a little protesting, but it'll be no consequences because I got this whole force backing me. And then I think about the police chief, and then I think about all of the complaints that he had against him. And I'm basically like, you guys let him out as a loose cannon. Like, you knew what type of person you were dealing with. You cannot tell me that you did not know what type of person you were dealing with. Now, I'm pretty sure he was maybe some type of bully on the police force to his other fellow officers. Can you imagine 3 other officers not doing anything? He probably was that person that they were afraid to approach or stop him because of repercussions or anything that he might be dealing with later. So it's just a lot of different emotions for me. You know, now that we're going through this, and it's a lot of people out here that's like, let's buy by the block. Let's buy back the block. Let's do this, do that. And because I'm already in the field of hosting entrepreneur workshops to educate, you know, people on how to start businesses properly, you know, that's something that I feel like will help the community. That's my contribution to the community. I'm only one person though, so it might work, it might not. Even if we do the whole reform or we defund the police and we take some of the money back and put it back into the community, that will be something I will rally to contribute to teach them about this type of thing. And not only just the legal paperwork of it, on what it is to really be an entrepreneur or really be a person at the head of your existence or the head of your company. Like all the back stuff that people don't see, you know, not the pretty side of it, but the ugly side of it as well. So I am very worried about my son. I'm very worried that the police are agitated even more now, and that you come across white people. I haven't personally been racially profiled. I've been racially profiled before, but from a Black young lady working corporate America. You know, she racially profiled me based on me working corporate America and having something simple as an American Express card. And it was just like, Black people don't have that, or Black people are not allowed to do this, or Black people don't whatever. And I'm like, who taught you this stuff? So there was a disconnect somewhere there. And I felt really bad. I felt really like bad for her as a person. Like, that's not the way that you need to be thinking. You need to be stepping outside of the box and thinking what's going on and why do you think that? Who told you that a Black person can't have an American Express? Who told you that? Why do you think that? That's not the case. I'm very well educated. I have degrees, all of that good stuff. But I try to apply things from a life standpoint as well. And then it's teaching my son how to, when we leave the legacy, to carry it on a certain way, so that my grandson will be able to carry it on a certain way. As you see some of this old money, as they would call it, some of these families with all these different powers. So I don't know. I'm watching and I'm looking and I'm just waiting to see when it's time for me to insert myself into something that I can contribute to give back to help the process along, or we won't have to be having these conversations as much. I won't say they won't go away, but as much. So that's pretty much what I got to say about it right now.
Hi, I just want to first of all thank you all for hosting this space for us to be able to have this conversation. And Charlisha, Teresa, Peter, you all know that I am typically never at a loss for words, but just through this whole last couple of days, I have been at a loss for words, just trying to figure out how I can be most effective in the space, you know, that I hold, the spaces that I hold in my classroom, with the staff at the agency that I supervise, just trying to figure it out. But more so, what's on my mind now is last year I was in the Dominican Republic on vacation, taking a much needed vacation. And probably about maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from my son who said that he was being pulled over by the police. And here in Indiana. And my heart broke because my son knew that I was in Dominican Republic, and I did not know what I was going to hear on that phone call, and there would be nothing that I could do from where I was in Dominican Republic and he being in Indiana. And he did tell me, you know, that he was speeding. And so my husband and I were just, you know, coaching him on things that we unfortunately had to coach my now 20-year-old son his entire life about, you know, how to respond when he's stopped by the police and what he needs to do. But I was so fearful of what I was going to hear on the other end of that phone and not be able to get to my baby. So this week, because I have not been able to watch the video either, but just to hear people say that Mr. Floyd was, you know, calling for his mother, I can't even fathom. I just can't. So conflicted is a good word, because that's kind of where I am now. I'm trying to figure out how to be, you know, again, most effective, but I have been rethinking a lot of things. You know, I'm in a doctoral program now. I've been rethinking that. I've been rethinking some of the things that, you know, the way we've raised our children and, you know, being so hyper vigilant now, my son leaving home and me being so worried about him. And then he turned around and he said, "My God protects me. I'm going to be okay." What was I to say to that? Because that's something that I have been teaching my son since he was a young boy. So how can I go back on that now when he wants to go out and be a part of, you know, what he feels he should be doing right now? So conflicted is a good word. I'm all over the place. And for the young lady who spoke about being stopped by the police with her son in the car, I so wish I had something to offer you, but I don't, because my son is 20 and I'm in the same boat right now. And, you know, it's even worse when he's driving, because just like I was in Dominican Republic when he called me, there will be nothing that I could do. I could only listen and hear. And I'm grateful that that particular Indiana police officer was either nice or having a great day, and he let my baby get home safely. But that was rough. So I don't know. I'm conflicted, and I'm just trying to figure out how I can be most effective in the spaces that I hold, so that I could help others, and just figure out what we need to do next. I'm solution focused. So I'm like, okay, we have the attention now. Now that we have the attention, what are the next steps? And that's kind of where I am now. So thank you for this space, everybody.
All right. We are powerful. Did Sedona want to say anything, or is there someone else? Hey, Sedona.
Hi everyone. I guess the only thing that's on my mind right now is, like, I'm not gonna sit here as a white person and act like I can relate to these experiences on a personal level, but I guess just the opportunity to be able to sit here with all of you and to listen and to expose myself to these experiences that you've had helps me to understand how to be a better ally for the community, and I guess teaches me to talk less and to listen more. I feel like that's how I can play my own part, basically. So thank you for this opportunity. It's exciting to be able to already expose myself to the Governor State community. So I'm looking forward to it.
Where are you from, Sedona?
I'm in Freeport, Illinois. It's 45 minutes from Rockford, Illinois, if you're familiar with that at all. I just graduated community college, so I'll be transferring there in the fall.
GSU or Wilberforce? Or?
Yeah, I'm so excited. So
Wilberforce?
Hopefully we'll be there in
GSU. She's coming to GSU.
Oh, GSU.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think that we will have this conversation about Peter and Charlize and I have talked about this conversation, that next conversation, they haven't given a date yet. We'll probably have a date in 24 hours. But the next conversation is about white privilege, allies, and biracial community and other communities of non-African Americans, what they're experiencing, because we have a lot of students. Peter shared with us his journey in being a white male and dealing with George Floyd in that space. And then we also have biracial students who have experienced, right, I'm Black and I'm white, what the heck? And we wanted to open that conversation up. We didn't, and I'm saying this to everybody because we would love you to be in that space, to hear that conversation, to have that conversation, because we're all, you know, in this together. And whether we want to be or not, in different ways, either ally, either because you're married to somebody or you have friends who, and you're asking, what do we do? And many of our colleagues have asked what to do. And I've said personally to all of my white friends who I've known since 1999, I'm not talking to white people right about now. I need to rest. And the response that I got from them was like, oh my gosh, I am so glad we're this close to be that honest. And that's the level of authenticity that we want to have in dialogue. And we want to create that space for people who are allies and, or who, you know, and who are concerned and deeply committed to have a space as well. So I can't wait, and I hope that you're a part of it. I know Kathy will be a part of it. She's always, you know, and our students, because we have these open dialogues in class. We hide nothing. We're raw with the conversation. So I think that I'm hoping we'll all be a part of it. The part I want to say that Peter and Trevon and myself, we went to Ghana last year, and this year we're supposed to be in Ghana right now. We do service learning projects in Nicaragua and Panama, and last year we were in Ghana. There's a podcast that's mandatory for everybody to listen to called Seen on Radio, How a Race Was Made, and I'm highly recommending it to everybody. It's out of Duke University, because a part of what do we do is first understanding what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with just this current event or the last 10, 20, 30 events, but the much of the language you hear Dr. Rahim and the language that I'm saying, and you hear themes, even if we're saying it different, they're clear themes because of training, years of training and studying history. We need to reteach history in America, the truth, and about what has happened, because then I think we'll have a better way of saying, how do we tear down this broken system? And how do we rebuild? I told Shalisa, and I want to open it up, because I was like, we are not leaving you in trauma. We would be poor clinicians, poor social workers, whatever your title, whatever. It's the last thing you want to do is leave somebody in trauma. And I'm going to say just what I have to say, and then I'll open it up. When we go into the dungeons, when we go to Ghana, when we go into the dungeons, I felt that I've always been called to bring and take people into the dungeons because the ancestors have told me that this is what we need to do. We prepare people before they go in, but not only that, we remind people, it's a constant reminder that in 400 plus years, you have not been able to destroy Black people. You won't do it today. We have more resilience. We have more of anything and everything you can imagine, but you think about ancestors who came before us and the shoulders we stand on. We're not going anywhere, y'all. If we were able to be destroyed, we would have been. Don't be fooled. We'll get weary and we'll get tired, but we have never given up. And the further we grow, the more we do, the more harder it comes back, but that's okay. You stay focused, you keep that child focused on this gift. Somebody, Tawana was talking about her child being very science-like. Nurture that gift. Focus on the strengths and less of all of this. This is noise, this is chatter. Yes, we need to do this work, but when we're coming to raising our children, let's nurture their gifts and not raise them in fear, even in spite of this craziness. You do not let man dictate what the universe has ordered at birth. We must stay focused, have fun, and bring joy. Thank you. I'm opening it up and I'm going to be quiet.
So one of the I guess I would have to say one of my pet peeves is doing actions or works that I think are in vain, that I think are futile. And I think that was my that is my thought process when it comes to how we have responded to the murder of George Floyd. I think that things do need to happen. I think things need to change. I think systems need to be reevaluated on every end. I think that we've protested for years. We've rioted. We've protested peacefully. We've protested aggressively. And I'm saying, okay, so here we are again with one more act of blatant injustice. And we're doing the same thing. We're spinning our wheels. So I'm thinking, what can we do as individuals, as organizations, as leaders, educators, what can we do differently? What can we offer to that younger generation that's walking the streets protesting? What can we offer them that we haven't tried before? What kind of organization skills or teaching can we give them that might bring about some change? Because the things that we've been doing haven't been working. I posted on Facebook, this is when me and Tawana had our conversation. I posted on Facebook how I was embarrassed by the looting because we are tearing down our own home, our own communities, and they are not going to be rebuilt anytime soon. A lot of those businesses that we complain about not having stores or businesses in our own communities, the ones that were there, we tore them down. And so I'm like, okay, that's not, in my mind, that's not gonna help. I understand the outrage. I watched the video. I purposefully watched the video because I wanted to feel what was bringing about such anger and aggression, and I felt it. It was intentional. He intentionally killed him. And my thought is, how do we address it? How do we change the trajectory of what has been occurring? Because if we just loot, protest until we feel better about it, we'll have another one. We'll have another incident where we're doing the same thing. And so my only thought or offer is, what can we do differently? Because we have to do something differently. We can't keep doing the same thing. That's insanity. We're doing the same thing expecting different results. So that's where I am.
I know in my own community, in my own office, where I work, I know there's conversations happening. I know that there's allies happening. I'm on, a little group with Victoria and another cohort, Angelica, and we're trying to get more people. We're trying to be allies. I had the conversation with my supervisor today about, making Juneteenth a holiday. He was like, of course, we'll look into it. Let's talk about it. I talked to him about, because I'm a therapist, I talked to him about, we were told to come forward, through the conversations of last week. We were told to talk to our supervisors, and every single one of our supervisors is white. I said, what's happening here? And so he said, you're right. I had that from another supervisor. He said the same thing. I said, except for one, my former supervisor is Muslim, and the other one is from, Middle Eastern, and the other one is Latina. But other than that, its majority is white. And I said, there's a problem here, you know, so we need to do something about this. And so, I mean, if we all started going to our organizations that we're working in, or, you know, spread that word, we can start small and do something, you know.
We don't need to start small. We need to do. We got educated people. Come on, y'all. This is bullshit. Sorry, see, I told y'all it was almost my bedtime. I got a limit on. But, you know, we have to stop acting as if we don't have the people there, right? Part of, if you talk about the symbolism of the knee on the neck, part of that knee on the neck is disparity. Part of that knee on the neck is not having real, true equity. True equity means I, with my chocolate skin, I have the same opportunities, my son, my children, as your children. And it shouldn't change because of color.
Right.
The education system should be the same. Until that changes, then it's not, none of this is gonna end.
Well, that's another thing.
So let me finish, because now I get my soapbox. It's an insult. My PhD from the University of Chicago should be equal to anybody else's. That's bull.
Right.
It's not about being smart. At this point, it's about opportunity. I know I had a conversation with a gentleman. He makes $265,000. He's complaining about $65,000 being taken away because of COVID. He has a bachelor's degree.
Oh.
I'm just saying. So where are those opportunities for everybody? So we don't have to wait. There's a quote, and there's a quite fascinating quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, and I will find that quote for everybody. But I'd be damned if white America tell us and liberals tell us to be patient and wait, and we can take a little step. We've taken too many little steps. This is bull. And y'all know it's bullshit. And it's that complicit behavior that allows us to keep going in this direction, because we're so patient, because we want to be liked. Well, being liked hasn't gotten us anywhere. It's about the true action, and we need to be honest. We need to be honest and address honesty. I'm not even asking for being radical. The only thing, if you're gonna call me radical, is for being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we start real relationships. And Kathy, I'm just having this conversation because we've been around each other, and we will always be around each other. But the truth of the matter is, Black folks don't trust white people. And they're gonna be polite in spaces, and I am tired of seeing it. Ain't no secret, it's real obvious.
Yeah.
and the same though, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter, because it's the culture of America. We must be honest in these spaces and have real conversations. And that's what I'm pushing for. Have authentic conversations, people. Let's have authentic conversations.
Can I say something?
I'm gonna be quiet.
When I was invited by Shalisha to come on, I was a little nervous because I thought I was being set up, that I was gonna come on here and I was gonna be this radical person, and all these moderates was going to be bringing these torches and trying to burn me down. Heck, I feel I got to step up my game after listening to you, Dr. West. I feel I got to step up my game. I'm probably, man, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with, you know, your candor and your spirit. It's very, very refreshing and powerful. I love it. So I want to, you know, Governor State students, current and Governor State students who are graduated, I don't know if y'all realize what a treasure you all have to have a professor that's going to stand by you and support you in your growth and development, like I could see that she's doing. That I just want to say that is beautiful. Because when you have somebody that's going to do that for you, take full advantage of it. Take full advantage of it, you know, and make sure that you protect her.
We don't want to take anything away, and yeah, because we love Dr. West. Yes, we do. But we don't want to take anything away from Professor Neal also. Professor Neal is our, Professor Neal is, she's a gem as well at Governor State. She's our internship, our field placement instructor. So she's.
We've been blessed with two great professors.
Yeah, we have a couple, and these are two of our go-tos.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
We're blessed. And they are two people that I'm very clear. I could graduate and I'll still 10, 20 years from now, we'll still be talking. We'll still be communicating because that's the kind of impact both of them have left on me.
You ain't lying because I graduated 4 years ago and I'm still dragging around here.
Yeah.
Well, I have you beat.
5 years for me.
11 years ago, and I'm teaching there. So.
Right.
The marathon continues.
I got Addison teaching there in a couple of years, I think. I can see it.
Well, I'm finna pull something out that Shalisa didn't say. I'm the reason Shalisa is at GSU.
Definitely. So I
Yes.
applied for St. Xavier, and St. Xavier turned me down, and he was like, "Why don't you apply at Governor State?" I was like, I don't know, maybe I just won't. And I started the process. Right, I started the process, and it took me like 2 years to get in because I applied to Governor State, but not to the program. So I'm sitting up waiting on my acceptance letter or rejection letter, and I got nothing. So I had to wait for a whole another year to get to apply to the program.
And I
so
fussed.
yeah, so I did.
I fussed.
He did. He fussed, but I thank him for it.
Because I know what program we have here. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be real honest, and this is one reason why I'm so grateful that I am a GSU alum, is because they taught me how to fight in a social work arena. You know, every year, even before I went to GSU, I was going to Springfield to fight for money. I went to Springfield 6 years. 6 years straight, going to money. When I was over at Prairie State, guess what? Did the same thing. You know, when I came to GSU, did the same thing. They taught me how to fight. And this is no different fight, because guess what? This is a fight for our lives now. This ain't for no money. This is a fight for our lives. Because every day, and again, this is another thing that I openly talk about. Sometimes I'm afraid to go outside. Like literally, my big behind is afraid to go outside, and it's not because of me. It's about what may happen to how my family will feel if something happens to me, my kids, everybody that cares about me. Because I'm gonna tell you, something happened to me, it's gonna be some smoke in the city. You know, honestly. But I mean, that was a joke to lighten the mood. But but what I'm saying is that when we really look at it, all the things that can happen and sometimes will happen, they are not they try to make us feel like it's a figment of our imagination. Oh, that don't happen. That's not what happens. Yes, it happened to me. It happened to Jerry. You know what I'm saying? It happened to Dr. It happened to everybody. I can't hear you, Doc. Can't hear you.
And I'm going to challenge you, right? And challenge us. If we stay on the trauma, we will relive the trauma.
Come on now.
If we stay on the trauma, we relive the trauma. If we move forward on how we can each do something to contribute to our health, we move forward into empowering ourselves. So either we're going to be a victim and focus on what has happened to us, or we're going to identify what can we do, right? In the space. What can we knowing what, and a part of it, Tanisha, where I was going is, and I'm going to get off real soon, and if y'all say that's fine, but I'm going to have to get off. But Tanisha, part of this where I was going is sometimes when Dr. Rahim was talking about the importance of therapy And there's multiple levels of that, right? Sometimes that means, okay, we do get counseling therapy, but we also get a great support system of sort to uplift each other in the midst of this, right? That's our group, making sure we stay in touch with people who make us feel and think forward in healing, a group of other mothers to say, this is what we're gonna do in here. This is how we're gonna take care of our children in the midst of this. And this is how we're gonna take care of ourselves. So I think that there's something that's called, he's calling it emancipation circles. Dr. Rahim said emancipation circles. Emancipation circles, sisterhood circles, lifting each other up, brotherhood circles, whatever you want to call it. The key to all of these circles is that it's called learn helpfulness. In the midst of despair, what do we do, right? To feel better, to keep it moving. And that is what gets us out of and get us unstuck. So got to go, I have to go too. Somebody said that. So I just wanted to leave that, and I know that Shalisa, how do you want to move this so we can go, or anybody is holding on? But I want us to hold on, to find something to hold on to. Mm-hmm. Because the recording is in their head, and it's not always, we have to do something to counteract the stories. Okay.
I mean, I'm okay with, unless anyone has anything else that they want to say, that they want to add. I guess we're at a good point to end here.
I would like to thank everybody. I mean, you guys are powerful. I love to hear positive thinking, and I love to hear different thoughts. And it's just, this has been very, very enlightening. I'm like, man, I don't want to let y'all go. Keep it going. But thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for participating.
Sure.
Y'all will definitely see me at the next one.
Thanks,
okay.
everyone.
We will.
Rahim, you didn't close us out.
You like, bye.
I thought I did. Well, I'll say it one more time. You know, there's a lot of room on the dark side to, if you want to, you know, dismantle the police force. There's a lot of room on the dark side. Come on over here, join me. You know, we got to look at dismantling the education system, because the thing about it is, to be Black in these spaces, your main job is to make white people feel comfortable. And if you can't do that, they try to get rid of you. So it's like, we got to do what we can to dismantle these places of structural racism and white superiority. So I want to thank everyone for inviting me into your space and giving me a chance to speak my piece. It was a real pleasure meeting you, Dr. West. It was a real pleasure meeting you, Mr. Jackson. Sister Davis Neal, it was a pleasure listening to you speak. Sister Teresa, it was great to hear you speak, and I'm still welcoming you over to the dark side. Eventually you'll come. It was good seeing my former students as well. So Jerry, you know, good luck on your endeavors on building your halfway house. I hope you do well. Let me know if I can help you in any kind of way.
It's really nice.
Do you mean the dark side or the chocolate side?
I like the chocolate side. I'm gonna start using that. I'm gonna coin that phrase. Thank you, Dr. West.
I'm a Dark Vader and Star Wars fan, so I just want to make sure. Thank you. Swaso, excellent job. Great community, and I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you, Dr. West.
Great job.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Bye,
See you later now.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Good night.
All right.
Bye, Sawana. You good? All right. I can't hear you, but okay.